It is so hot today. Went for a walk like I normally do, and it was like 85 degrees at 11 a.m. this morning. Pretty wild. It's supposed to be like this for a couple days, so just got the AC blasting and hunkering down. Wanted to talk a little bit about technology and getting older. I'm a pretty big technology fan. I like it. I think it's neat. I think it's useful. And being Gen X, I've gotten to see technology evolve in some really amazing ways. I think I bought my first computer in the early 90s, and I used it for like music recording and production, which was really kind of groundbreaking at the time. It was a very new thing that you could do. A lot of people were still using cassette tape, 4-tracks, things like that to record music, or they would go into a studio. But the ability to do it yourself was a really cool thing. I had a Palm Pilot at one point. I loved the Palm Pilot. I got really good at writing. You had to know how to make the characters. So for example, if I wrote my name, T was a 7 basically. And at one point in my life, in the very early 2000s, I was carrying a cell phone, a Palm Pilot, and an MP3 player. Smartphones started to happen, and then when the iPhone actually happened, that's when I was able to finally kind of consolidate everything in a really useful and meaningful way. And phones have become amazing. You know, some people run a business off of them, or they use it for their entertainment device. You can watch movies or play games. But more than ever, technology has also become a little bit problematic. A lot of people are addicted to their screens or to their phones. I remember when I was little and people would complain about kids watching too much TV. And even way before that with like the Luddites and the Industrial Revolution where machines were taking people's jobs in factories. Technology has always been a little bit controversial. And the latest thing is AI. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about my feelings on AI, how I actually use it, and a little bit of an analogy with AI and email. Now, I know some people who are absolutely anti-AI. In last week's video, I talked a little bit about putting yourself in buckets and the danger of that. And, you know, if you call yourself pro-AI or anti-AI, you're missing a lot of the nuance and the gray area. Now, there are some super problematic things with AI. First and foremost is the whole environmental impact. You know, data centers are not only like an environmental hazard, but also really taxing on communities. So if AI is going to be a thing, we really need to figure that out. The other big problem is AI taking over for humans. I firmly believe that AI should be a tool or an extension of your brain, not a replacement for your brain. And when AI does things that humans normally do to express themselves, like make images or make video or write papers, I'm not a big fan of that. I read an article recently about how so many students, and even university students, are using AI that they haven't really ever used their own voice. They're just having the machine create things and not contributing anything from their own brain. And effectively, that is the beginning of the silencing of a generation. That's not great. So how do I use AI? When I make a video, I export it, and I also export an audio-only version. And then I hand the audio-only version to the AI, and I say, come up with 10 titles for this video and a brief description. And very quickly it does. And then I can go through and kind of pick and choose and massage that initial idea into what I actually post with the video. It generally does a really good job of coming up with the rough draft and catching all of the important details. And then I add a little bit more of the human touch and some of the important things to me that it might have missed. Same thing with the titles. Sometimes it is spot on, and sometimes there'll be a couple of them where it's like, if I combine those two, that actually is going to be a really good title. And then more specifically, I use it as a thought partner. It's very good at taking massive amounts of information and distilling it down very quickly. So for example, I was using it recently to compare credit card points. I was talking about maybe getting a travel credit card, and I told it, you know, this is how much I spend on things and this is what I've been looking at. And it was able to kind of compare and contrast very quickly without me having to do all the math and make a couple of recommendations, which I could then verify. And I got a new credit card based on that. If I'm going to take a trip, I will ask it, what should I do during this time? And it will very quickly pull together a suggested itinerary. And then if I say, well, I definitely want to do this and this as well, it can kind of figure that out, and then I can go from there. You can also ask it, what are the most popular restaurants right now? Where do the locals go in this town? And rather than Google searching and going page by page and trying to figure out what's what, it starts with a very holistic, high-level view of all of the information, and then you can dig in from there. The AI I currently use is Claude. They're all a little problematic as far as how they manage things, but Claude, in my opinion, seems to be the most trustworthy and academic. Google is Google, and ChatGPT has really turned into a train wreck of a company. And I feel pretty confident giving Claude some information about myself. For example, with the credit card research, I gave it a bunch of information about my finances, how much I spend each month on different categories, and it was able to use that information to provide some really useful recommendations. If you're working on a project or you're running a business, if you provide context to the AI, the information that it can give you is very, very useful. So like I said, I believe that electronic tools should work for you, not the opposite. And one of the original and the most fundamental electronic tools is email. And I can really tell a lot about a person by what their inbox looks like. I've seen people who have the little email icon on their desktop, like they use it all the time, and it has a little badge that'll say hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands of messages. And if that's the situation you're in, that tool has become absolutely useless. Right now, there are 3 messages in my inbox, nothing else. But I wasn't always like that. And the way I got there is very, very doable and very, very learnable. I had mentioned that I'm a little bit of a planner, pretty organized, and there's some very specific actions I took to get there. And with my new kind of part-time life and having all of this extra space, I've really had to flex some of those muscles. So getting your email in order. This is not like a new concept, the whole inbox zero thing or, the getting things done method. Been around for years and years and years. I'm a really big fan of Tiago Forte and his organization system. I will leave a link in the description so you can check him out if you want. He has some really concise videos and he's written books on being organized. And the way that he works and the whole getting things done method and all of that kind of jive with how my brain works. And I just had to make some little adjustments and some formalizations to take advantage of these systems. So specifically with email, here's how you organize your inbox. So the first thing you do is you delete everything. Fundamentally, email is a communication tool, and you have to understand and believe that. Email is not anything else. It's not a scrapbook, it's not a filing cabinet, it is a communication tool. And so to start using it in that way, the first step is start over. And I mean literally just select everything and delete it. A lot of email services like Gmail, they archive it, meaning that it deletes it from your inbox, but it's still retrievable or searchable later. You can do that if you want. But the point is, remove everything from your inbox. If you have hundreds or thousands of emails, you have no idea what's in there. And if it's important, they will send it again. So the next day, day 1, open your email, look at it. You'll have a whole bunch of new messages. And the first thing you do is you unsubscribe from everything. If you get any sort of newsletter or mailing list or an email from a business, unsubscribe. All this is literally is advertising, and you can go find this information when it is important to you. Again, email is a communication tool, not a place for people to advertise to you. And you just need to make a habit of this for a few days. After a week of this, you will have substantially less emails coming in. Now, every other email that comes in that it actually matters or is important is basically one of 4 things. It is a note, it's a reminder, it's a calendar event, or it's something you reply to. A note is just a bit of information that is useful. If somebody sends you an email with information that's useful, save it as a note, delete the email. If the email that comes in has a thing that needs to be done, put that on your reminder to-do list, delete the email. If the email is telling you about an event coming up, put it on your calendar, delete the email. And if somebody is sending you a request or a question, you reply, delete the email. And that's it. It's really not complicated when you break it down like that. The thing that is hard for people is this giant number that they're looking at. It just feels so daunting. And the fear that you might be missing something. Like literally, it's like inbox FOMO. But like I said, if you delete your entire inbox, even if it's a bill that's in there, they'll send it again. Now at this point of the video, you might be like, why does this even matter? And it might not to you. To me, it does. I have always been a fan of details. In my 20s, I read a bunch of books on Feng Shui. You know, like in Feng Shui, they say you should have your couch facing the front door. All that is when people walk in, you can see them. Whereas if you have the couch facing away from the front door, when people walk in, you have to crane your neck to see who's coming in. It's not mystical or magical, it's just common sense. And similarly, when you do that to your environment or your inbox, you have less stress and less to worry about. That little badge that's on your home screen for whatever reason, even though you obviously never touch it, with this giant red badge that says 10,000, that does you no good. Like I said, I didn't invent any of this, and I'll leave some links in the description so you can do a little research. Maybe in future videos I'll talk about how I organize my week or my month, and some people might find that interesting. Anyway, I'm going to go into the AC. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you next time.